Hey guys, lesson 12.1. This is the end of task 4 where the video cut off on the last one. Alright, so as we were saying, we were looking for the excluded values. I'm not sure where they got this. If you find out that I'm incorrect, let me know, but I do not think this is an excluded value. I think this is an error, again, in the textbook, which there seems to be several of those, but that's okay. Alright, it says how is determining these values different? For a product of two rational expressions, well, the only difference is we had to do the reciprocal of the second one. So to do division, you multiply by the reciprocal of the second one. So the excluded values still come from the denominator, but remember you have to change it to multiplication before you look for those excluded values. All right, explain how the factors shown were determined. All right, using synthetic division, the cubic expression is factorable as, we factored that as x squared, or x plus 2, x squared, plus 4x plus 4. The trinomial, x minus 8 and x minus 4. And the sum of cubes we factored as x plus 2, and then x squared minus 2x plus 4. And then we had the difference of squares as two binomials with different signs. So x plus and minus 8. All right, so that is all for task 4. If you have any questions, let me know. Lesson 12.1, task 5. Multiply and divide with rational expressions in the real world. The fastest train in the United States is the Acela train. It can maintain its top speed for only a short section of its tracks between Boston and New York City. So its top speed is 150 miles per hour, and from Boston to New York City it's 231 miles. All right, so it says the expression, okay, here's the expression, represents the time in hours it takes for the Acela train to travel from Boston to New York City, where R subscript 1 is the top speed in miles per hour of the train during the trip. R2 is the average speed of the train on the remainder of the trip, including your stops. D subscript 1 and D subscript 2 are the corresponding distances in miles at those speeds. All right, so it says create an expression for the average speed R of the Acela trip from Boston to New York if the average speed when it is not at its top speed is 60 miles per hour. All right, so it says the total distance traveled is equal to the product of the average speed and the total time for the trip. So the average speed is the total distance divided by the total time. So here's our equation. Average speed equals total distance divided by total time. So we're going to have R equals 231. Your total distance was given, 231 miles in the picture here from Boston to New York. And then this expression here was given for total time. So it says this right here represents time in hours. Okay, so that was given as well. All right, so if we take this total distance divided by total time, we can multiply that by the reciprocal of the second fraction, and that way it's multiplication. That way it's much easier to work with. All right, so we're going to substitute what we know. R1 again was 150. R1 represented maximum speed. R2 represented the average speed. And then, let's see, D1 and D2. D1 and D2 represents the distance in miles at those speeds. All right, and that was 60 and 150. They gave this average was 60, top speed 150. All right, and then for the distance 1 and distance 2, they're going to substitute x and 231 total miles minus x. So that would be the two distances for the stop. Since we don't know what those are, that will be x and 231 minus x. All right, so if you simplify all of this, that gives you this expression here. Now it says explain the substitutions that have been made. Okay, we just did that. All right, and it says what has happened in this step. All right, so in this step, we went from division to multiplying by the reciprocal. So the division sign changed. Yes, division was changed to multiplication by the reciprocal of the rational expression. That's the best answer. Nothing changed. That's not true. All right, so it says justify the substitutions that have been made in these steps. All right, the top speed of the train is 150. So R1, your rate, R1 was 150. And the average speed of the rest of the trip was 60 miles per hour. So that's your second rate. So those were the two numbers that we substituted into the rational expression. What does x represent in the expression? And justify replacing D2 with 231 times x. So we talked about that a little bit. It says the variable x represents the distance for which the train speed averages 60 miles per hour. Since the total distance is 231, the expression 231 minus x represents the portion of the train, or portion of the trip, when the train is at its maximum speed of 150 miles per hour. All right, so those are those substitutions. And then it says, so the average speed of the trip depends on the distance the train can travel at top speed. If the train can only travel at top speed for 33.9 miles, what is the average speed of the train from Boston to New York City? So 33.9 miles. Okay, so let's use our function here. So I'm going to say 231 times 150 times 60, and that's our numerator, so we need to remember that number. And then we're going to have 60 times 33.9. That was our top speed. And then plus 150 times 231 minus 33.9. All right, so now we're going to do 207,900 divided by 31,599. All right, so we're just dividing the numerator by the denominator. So this shows that our average speed is going to be about 65.79. So that is about 65.8 miles per hour. And that's if the top speed is only 33.9 miles is all they can be at their top speed. All right, so how long does it take the train to travel to Boston? From Boston to New York? Okay, so if their average speed is 65.8 and we know that it's 231 miles, so we know it's going to be 231 miles divided by 65.8 miles per hour. It's going to take about 3.51 hours. It's about 3.5 hours to travel from Boston to New York on the train, the Acela train. All right, if you have any questions, please let me know.